bring on board billionaire investor and author Jim Rogers, chairman of Roger Holdings, joins us live from Singapore. Jim, even though it's 3rd of Jan 2012, it's never too late to exchange pleasantries. Wish you a wonderful 2011 ahead on behalf of the entire 18 team.
Well, I wish you a wonderful 2012. I hope that India and all of us do better.
Jim, first the big picture. EU debt crisis, downgrades or rating downgrades and high volatility dominated the year 2011. What do you mind will dominate the year 2012?
What will dominate 2012? Well, we have several elections. I think there are 40 elections in 2012. America, France, Korea, Taiwan, a lot of places, I think 6 or 8 countries in Africa. So you're going to see a lot of government spending as governments try to buy elections. So things are going to, a lot of people are going to have a very good 2012 because governments are going to pour money into their pockets and their friends, and they are going to have a good time. The overall situation, however, in the world is getting worse. Just means higher debt. So when 2013 comes, Nikunj, you better be careful.
Jim, hi, good morning. Happy New Year from me too. Start of 2011, it was about eating rice with silver chopsticks. What is it that you're recommending for 2012?
Well, you know, Aisha, yesterday or today, I was so excited. I saw that India, the headline said that India is now going to open it up finally so that people can invest in the Indian stock market. I said, well, this is what I've been waiting for a long time. I'm short India, as you know. So I said, well, I may have to cover my shorts. I might even buy India finally. But then I realized it's the same old bureaucratic nightmare in India. You have to get special permission. You have to, go through the currency controls. Why can't India do something without being full of bureaucracy and nightmares? I was hoping that India would finally be coming around. But Aisha, it looks the same old thing to me. Doesn't look like you're changing at all.
So, what will make Jim Rogers the India bear, the India bull?
Well, one thing would be if you opened your economy, if you opened your currency, if you opened your stock market, if you opened your commodity markets, if you opened everything, I would have to start getting very, very interested in India. As you know, Nikunj, I've talked to you all before about the nightmare bureaucracy and the regulations there, and the government which just keeps spending other people's money. If that ever changed, India is, I've lectured many times, India is the single best country in the world to visit as a tourist, but one of the single worst bureaucracies in the world and one of the single worst places to do business. That could all change. It could be extremely exciting, maybe not in 2012, but certainly after, if the Indian government would ever get its act together.
Jim, just getting back to the point that I was earlier questioning you about. You've been bullish on rice as well as silver. Does that trend continue for 2012 as well? And do you see more traction in both these commodities?
Well, Aisha, when we talked about that before, I was using those mainly as examples. I'm mainly bullish on commodities. At that time, I think maybe what I said was get yourself some silver chopsticks and eat rice. It would be good investments. I do own silver. I do own rice. I own all commodities. I own more agricultural commodities than I own any other right now. I own silver. I own gold. I'm not buying silver and gold right now. I expect them to correct even more. I mean, gold could go to 1,200. I don't know how low it's going to go. But if it does, I hope I'm smart enough to buy a lot more. And the same would apply to silver. Silver would go down too.
Jim, we know the reason why you are long commodities and especially agri-commodities, but why are you short equities?
Well, equities around the world have been pretty strong, or not pretty strong, but fairly strong over the past couple of years. They all collapsed in 2008 and 2009, had a big rally. I didn't start shorting again until well into 2010, but equities have held up better than they should, in my view. I'm short emerging market equities because emerging markets were perhaps the most exploited part of the world stock market. I'm short American technology for the same reason, and I'm short European stocks. I don't see any reason to own stocks going forward, Nikunj, when I can own commodities. If the world economy gets better, commodities are going to do very well because of shortages. If the world economy doesn't get better, I'm not going to make any money in Toyota or IBM, but I might make money in real assets, rice, things like that.
So, Jim, going forward, will U.S. Treasuries as well as dollar remain the first choice of global investors, and will we see more appreciation in both?
Well, I own U.S. dollars. I don't own bonds, U.S. bonds. It's a bubble as far as I'm concerned, Aisha. Unfortunately, that bubble's gone on 2 or 3 years longer than I thought it would. I don't have a position, but that's a bubble. I expect sometime to be shorting U.S. government bonds, but I do plan to own U.S. dollars. Now, the reason I own U.S. dollars is because there were so many pessimists on the U.S. dollar, that I bought some. And if we continue to have currency turmoil, which I expect, then many people are going to flock to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar, Aisha, is not a safe haven. It's not a safe haven. But many people think it is, so they don't know what else to do. So they'll put their money in the dollars. Somewhere along the line, the dollar's going to go up, I hope, some more. Then I'll have to sell it. I don't know if I'll ever own dollars again after that, because the U.S. dollar is a terribly, terribly flawed currency.
So just to get some more perspective on your currency outlook or dollar outlook, the dollar index right now is at 80. Do you see in next 3 years the dollar index could go to 100?
Nikunj, I'm not very good at market timing and short-term trading or medium-term trading. You should watch ET TV if you want to know where it's going to go. I own it. 100 wouldn't surprise me at all. It would not surprise me in the least, depending on how things evolve in the world. But if it gets to 100, I'm going to be very, very skeptical and probably will be selling. It's more likely to go to 90 or something like that, Nikunj. But I have to watch it as it goes along. And I'll watch ET, I'll watch Reuters and ET and try to figure out how high it's going to go.
Jim, what about crude? That has posted, third year of gains. Do you see it holding $100 to a barrel, especially now with Iran, building up its nuclear premium?
Well, Aisha, the surprise will be how high the price of crude stays and how high it eventually goes. We're running out of known reserves of crude oil around the world, unfortunately, and there's nothing to replace it yet. Maybe someday there are things that could replace it. I own crude. I'm not selling any commodities, certainly not crude, because we're running out of known reserves. And if we have a war, I mean, America's dying to go to war with Iran. Israel's dying to bomb Iran. If something like that happens, who knows how high the price of crude will go.
Jim, no one knows, what is in store in future, and future always surprises you with some random news. So what could challenge your conviction on agri-commodities?
I don't know. I guess India should be the greatest agricultural nation in the world. If you change some of your laws, which restrict agriculture in a huge way, wow, that would be extremely exciting for the world and for India. But even that would take a while, Nikunj. I can't think of anything. The problem, Nikunj, is we have huge shortages. But we have the average age of farmers in America is 58. In Australia, it's 58. In Japan, it's 66. The highest rate of suicide in the UK is in agriculture. Farming has been a horrible business for 30 years, Nikunj. Until we do something about the lack of farmers in the future, there's nothing that's going to change my view about that. Or if prices triple this year, I would obviously have to think about changing my view. But until we do something to attract more labor, more capital, more management into agriculture, the world is going to face serious problems in agriculture and much, much higher prices.
Right. Jim, the agri-commodity basket is a big group. It starts with coffee, goes all the way to corn. Within the agri-basket, which are some key commodities or key agri-commodities you are relatively bullish on or bearish on?
Well, Nikunj, what I've said to you before, I would just look at the ones that are cheapest. You take 20 commodities and find the ones that are still down the most, and start looking there. I buy all commodities. I invest through the ROGERS Agricultural Index. My lawyer will not let me buy individual commodities for obvious reasons. At least I hope they're obvious reasons. So I just buy the ROGERS Agricultural Index, which has 21 agricultural commodities. You look at those 21, you see which ones are the cheapest, and that's where I would start looking if I wanted to invest in individual agricultural commodities.
Jim, what's the kind of probability that you would assign to a EU breakup this year? Or do you think that is not a probability at all?
Well, the EU, I don't think the EU would break up at all. The euro may have some problems this year. We'll have more problems this year. I'm actually long the euro. There are many people short the euro right now. I sold some a few weeks ago, but I'm thinking about buying more. I don't think that the euro is going to break up this year in 2012. I certainly think it will within the decade, but I think it will survive this year. Maybe somebody will drop out of the euro, but it's not going to be the end of the euro. The world needs something like the euro. I hope it can pull together. I cannot invest on hope, obviously. My expectation that, I own it. What more can I say?
Jim, what role do you think China will play in global commodity demand in next 12 to 24 months? Because this year China will have a new chancellor. What we also understand that China currently is in the process of a soft landing.
Well, I don't know if it's a soft landing, Nikunj. Some parts of the Chinese economy are going to collapse. I mean, China has been doing its best to cool off the real estate bubble, and is starting to work. So I suspect some parts are going to have a very hard landing. Other parts of the Chinese economy are going to boom. Water treatment, agriculture. Many parts of China will not even know that some Shanghai real estate speculators are going bankrupt. But when people do slow down, or if you have some hard landings in some sectors, of course it's going to affect the demand for everything, especially copper, cement, things like that. So I would certainly see a slowdown in China's demand for building material, things which go into building and construction, because I hope you're going to have a continued slowdown, hard landing in property in China. But that's not the end of the Chinese economy, Nikunj. It's not like in America and the UK, when essentially the economy was wrapped up in real estate and real estate speculation. The Chinese economy is much broader than that.
Jim, so if you have to construct a portfolio, let's say $1 million, which is a reasonable amount for Indian standard, $1 million, for next 5 years, what will that portfolio contain? How much commodities, how much equities, how much currencies, and how much bonds?
Well, I'll tell you, it's my portfolio. My portfolio is long all commodities, especially agriculture, and it's long commodities. Currencies. So I'd have 100% in commodities and currencies. And I'm short, I told you what I'm short. I'd be very short stocks around the world. I might even have 100% short to match my longs, because I do see more turmoil in the world going forward. This year, 2012, is going to have some fairly strong periods because of all the money which governments are going to spend. But as I said before, by 2013, the Nikunj is going to be a mess worldwide.